Welcome to the world today. I'm Vikas Majid Khan. Today is the 25th of December, a very special day worldwide. More so for us because today is also the 142nd birth anniversary of Quaid-e-Azam. And indeed, it is Christmas all across the world as well. So we will be talking about that mostly. But our main topic in our conversation will be the foreign minister's visit to China, among all the other four important countries, which is Afghanistan, Iran, and Russia as well. We'll talk about that in some detail. Let me introduce my guests in the studio. Joining me for the conversation today, first of all, we have Yasir Masood Saab with us. He's a scholar and an academic. And joining him, we have Javed Rana Saab, who is a well-known journalist. And we also have Dr. Khurram Iqbal with us from China on Skype. So we will get the latest about what's happening in China from him. Thank you very much, Dr. Khurram, for joining us. Before we begin the conversation in the studio, I would also like to talk to our correspondent, Ali Andaz, and get the latest on how Pakistanis are celebrating both the birth of the Quaid-e-Azam as well as Christmas Day. Ali, are you with us?
Yes, Vikas.
Well, Ali, tell us how are Pakistanis celebrating Quaid-e-Azam's birthday and, of course, also Christmas. But first, please begin with the Quaid-e-Azam's birth anniversary celebrations.
Yes, Vikas, it's been a busy day since it's 25th December, and it's Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah's birthday, as well as it's the Christmas Eve. It's been a busy day for the government officials, President and Prime Minister as well. On this 142nd birthday of Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, both President Dr. Arif Alvi as well as Prime Minister Imran Khan sent their special messages on this occasion, this August occasion. And in their messages, President and Prime Minister termed Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah as one of the greatest leaders of the 20th century. President, in his special message on Quaid's birthday, said it is a moment to rejoice and reaffirm commitment to the ideals of democracy as envisioned by Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah and his principles for governance and democracy. And according to Prime Minister, in his message, he pledged to never repeat the past mistakes and committed, and he said that his government, he himself is committed to transforming the vision of Quaid-e-Azam into reality. There were many ceremonies as well in connection with the Quaid's birthday throughout the country. The main ceremonies which took place today on account of Quaid's birthday was the change of the guards at the Mazar of Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah in Karachi, and a smartly turned out contingent of cadets from Pakistan Military Academy took over the responsibility of guard in Karachi. And secondly, it was another very important ceremony which took place at Ziyarat. It was a flag hosting ceremony which was attended by Chief Minister Balochistan Jam Kamal, who was the chief guest on the occasion. Deputy Speaker National Assembly Qasim Suri, as well as parliamentarians and dignitaries attended that ceremony at Quaid's residency in Ziyarat. We should not forget that this is the same residency of Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, which was destroyed a few years ago, and it has been completely rebuilt. And all the speakers on that ceremony expressed their commitment to revive Quaid's Pakistan under the leadership of Prime Minister Imran Khan.
Yes, and Ali, also there was an interesting remark made by the Chief Justice when he said that we should be celebrating Quaid-e-Azam's birthday by working hard rather than taking the day off. Can you comment on that?
Yes, Wakas, he not only said it, he actually did it. He was at Supreme Court's registry in Lahore, and he heard regular cases there and passed some very important orders. And we have seen since in the last year and a half that the Chief Justice of Pakistan, Mian Saqib Nissan, has been working diligently. He has, even on the weekends, on off days, we see him working either at the Supreme Court building in Islamabad or Lahore Registry or Karachi Registry or Peshawar Registry. He has been very active, and he has been one of those proponents who really believe in working hard. And today, what he said, he proved it by holding regular hearings in Lahore. Definitely, it was 25th of December. It was a holiday, but he didn't care. He did his job. He heard regular cases, and he even passed some very important orders while hearing those cases.
All right. Tell us about Christmas. How is Christmas being celebrated across Pakistan?
Yes, because the main services of regarding the Christmas were kicked off last night. Services were held across churches in Pakistan. Mass were held, and on this occasion as well, both President and Prime Minister had special messages for the Christian community in Pakistan as well as around the world. And the President, keeping in mind what Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah said on 11th of August 1947, that the state has nothing to do with the religion or caste or creed of its citizens. And he said that this principle of Quaid-e-Azam will be upheld regardless of anybody's belief or caste or creed. And he said that he will be committed to upholding the freedom of belief and freedom of religion of every citizen of Pakistan. While Prime Minister also extended warm greetings to all the Christians living in Pakistan. Also, there was an important ceremony related with the Christmas Eve, which was attended by Chief of Army Staff, General Bajwa. He attended the ceremony at Christchurch in Rawalpindi, and he talked to the members of the Christian community after the service and extended warm greetings.
All right, thank you very much for the details. Ali Andaz, our correspondent, reporting on the celebrations of the birth of Quaid-e-Azam as well as Christmas on the same day. How fortunate. Let's get the conversation started and talk about the foreign minister's visit to China. Before I talk to my guests in the studio, I would like to get Dr. Khurram Iqbal's take on the situation. Dr. Khurram, you being in China, could you please tell us about the foreign minister's tour? It is a very important and whirlwind tour of the regional countries, and China is number 3 on the list after he went to Afghanistan and Iran. What do you think the conversation revolved around?
Waqas, apparently Afghanistan was on the top of the agenda of this visit, because recently we have heard the reports of President Trump verbally conveying to his advisors for the withdrawal of approximately 7,000 troops from Afghanistan. That particular statement from the United States of America has certainly led to a number of responses from this part of the world. China is certainly concerned, although Pakistan has welcomed this statement. Pakistan believes that this was a genuine demand from Afghan Taliban, one of their demands to get involved in the peace process, in the negotiation process. And by declaring this withdrawal, America has apparently fulfilled one of the demands of Afghan Taliban. But China is certainly concerned. China basically has 2 main concerns with regards to Afghanistan. One is geopolitical. When I say geopolitical, I mean that number of Chinese policymakers in Beijing, they were of the view that U.S. can maintain a permanent presence in Afghanistan, and using or manipulating that presence, U.S. can harm Chinese interests in the region. We have recently seen there was an attack on the Chinese consulate in Karachi, and the investigators have found that the planners of that attack would basically have been operating from Afghanistan. So this is all has been happening under the watchful eye of the American troops. So China has some genuine concern about the long-term plans of the presence of American army in Afghanistan. The second concern that China has with regards to Afghanistan relates to terrorism, because China thinks that if the United States opts for a complete withdrawal, that can create a situation which may become conducive for non-state armed militants to prosper in Afghanistan. And if there is instability in Afghanistan, if there is chaos in Afghanistan, or if there is a radical government in Afghanistan, China's Xinjiang province would be certainly affected by such a development. So China is basically in a catch-22 situation. If the U.S. withdraws from Afghanistan, there is a fear that terrorists or radical elements may become strong. And if U.S. does not withdraw or disengage militarily from Afghanistan, peace will remain elusive. So this is something which requires extensive deliberations, not only in Beijing, but Islamabad as well. Because Beijing still believes that certain elements of East Turkestan Islamic movement, the terrorist organization which has been involved in attacks in Xinjiang, is still being sheltered by Afghan Taliban. Afghan Taliban publicly have refused that they are not protecting any elements from China, but yet they have to make their position clear because Chinese they are not willing to trust Afghan Taliban on that. So this is a paradox. This is a confusion that prevails in the regional capitals in Beijing, in Islamabad, in Kabul, and in Tehran. And I think this calls for extensive communication, extensive deliberation among all the stakeholders involved in Afghanistan.
Indeed, that is why the foreign minister is in China and also will be headed to Russia because, of course, the regional countries are most concerned about bringing peace and stability to Afghanistan because it is in their direct interest. Dr. Khurram, thank you, but please stay with us on the line and we will continue to refer to you during the course of our conversation. And now coming to the studio, Yasser, you heard what Khurram said, and it was very interesting analysis on the predicament that China is now finding itself in. Not just China, but in fact the countries of the entire region are now grappling with this emerging situation with the pullout of the American troops imminent. What is your opinion on this matter? Can we expect the Afghan Taliban and the government to see the light and sit together and try to work out a political solution, and also to understand that it is, at the end of the day, all of them are Afghans and they need to be united in order to prosper and go forward?
Yes, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I totally agree with the analysis of Dr. Khurram because he has mentioned two very important points. And why, China is in a situation, or China has apprehensions which are quite legitimate, because you see 17 years on in Afghanistan, US has been questioned, even Donald Trump has been questioned many a times, that what is the rationale of the US. And then it was not only China which was in catch-22, even Pakistan, Iran, Russia for that matter, we were in that situation that what are the intentions of US such a long stay in Afghanistan. But I see a different perspective in that. At least eventually US has reached to a position where they have accepted the Taliban's presence and Taliban's influence in Afghanistan. Because you see, there are reports that more than 45% of the land is still occupied by the Taliban, or BBC reported that it's about more than 70% of the land is being occupied by them. And that's what Pakistan has been advocating for so long. That was Pakistan's prime stance, that to end the game in Afghanistan, the pragmatic solution is to go for a political consensus. Now there are two important things in that. Political consensus among the factions inside Afghanistan and political consensus of the region as well. I believe that the best possible way is now, and why, I mean, there is a bit of chaos and a bit of fear. I mean, this Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi's visit, it happened at a quite important juncture, because we are actually looking forward that we do not want to be in that position when US was there in the Soviet Union war, and when US left, there was a complete chaos after that.
You're referring to Iraq?
Yes.
Yeah, but we've moved on from there, and I think there are many lessons that the Americans should have also learned from their debacles in Iraq. Moving forward, I want to get Javed Saab also into the conversation. Javed Saab, what's your point of view? We were having an off-camera discussion regarding how we see things unfolding in Afghanistan after the announcement of President Trump. What do you foresee?
I think the biggest geostrategic reality in the region is that the Taliban have defeated Americans inside Afghanistan. There is an undeclared defeat at the hands of insurgents. They control 70% territory. It's a BBC report, very reliable report. And we need to look at the facts and figures on the ground, which are from 2015 till now, Afghan Taliban have killed more than 28,000 security personnel, Afghan security personnel. That is what President Ashraf Ghani himself admitted. This means Taliban are killing 500 Afghan troops and policemen every month on an average. And that was the reason that incoming Pentagon chief, he had to say, and other journals have to say, that these losses are not sustainable.
But I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but the generals are not in favor of leaving Afghanistan. They want to continue to stay in Afghanistan and exert pressure, military pressure on
nonetheless,
the Taliban.
that's a different debate. When they are admitting
these are
that
two
there is
contradiction in terms.
No, the point is when they are admitting that Afghan war doesn't have a military solution, there has to be peace talks. But at the same time, they want their symbolic presence on Afghan land because they want to monitor the regional countries. Now, what is happening on the negotiating table, that is extremely important. Taliban are not ready to settle down on anything short of the complete withdrawal of American soldiers. That's the one point. And the second, this government in Kabul, which has a symbolic presence, this is going to be the first casualty, a political casualty. It doesn't have a future. During the course of direct negotiations between Americans and the Taliban recently in UAE, Afghan representatives were not allowed to get into the negotiating room. They didn't have any meeting.
Afghan government, you mean?
Yes, Afghan government's representative.
Yes.
So that reflects it is the most likely scenario. Now Taliban are saying that we want an interim government, which we are going to nominate. We can object over their demand, but nonetheless, that is what is on the ground.
Well, we'll wait and see what happens on the ground. I'll come back to you on this. Please hold the thought. I want to bring Dr. Khurram into the conversation. Dr. Khurram, you were listening to Javed Rana Saab. His opinion is that things are going to be pretty tough for the Afghan government. We also have the Afghan elections scheduled for 2019. What do you foresee? Can we have some kind of a political rapprochement between the Afghan government and the Taliban so that they legitimize the electoral process and let elections happen and form a new government with Afghan Taliban representation? What do you foresee, sir?
I think that's the ultimate objective. Afghan government, including President Ashraf Ghani and entire administration, is fully on board, and they want to deliver a breakthrough before the elections in Afghanistan. So that is why all the sides are making important compromises with regards to engaging Afghan Taliban. As far as the military response to Afghanistan or the problem in Afghanistan is concerned, it has been tried and tested yet again. We are seeing even now that the American generals, you have rightly mentioned, they're quite unhappy with this announcement of withdrawal from Syria and subsequently from Afghanistan. The resignation from James Mattis was basically linked to this statement. But American generals must have to understand that they have tried force, they have tried the extensive use of force for more than 1 decade, and it has not led to any solution in Afghanistan. Rather, what we have seen, the extensive use of force led to the creation of Daesh in Syria and Iraq. We saw similar outcomes in Pakistan-Afghanistan region. So Pakistan for a long time has maintained that if there is a solution to Afghan problem, that is through a negotiated settlement. The good omen at the moment is that all the sides now agree to what Pakistan has been advocating for a long time. I vividly remember even Zalmay Khalilzad was once a very vocal critique of Pakistan's approach. But now, seasoned diplomats such as Zalmay Khalilzad, they have also understood that if there is a solution to Afghan quagmire, that is through negotiated settlement. So all the sides are giving their best. I could see that these talks brokered by Pakistan recently, they were more meaningful than the talks that were arranged by other brokers in the past. We have seen the Istanbul process. We have seen the talks in Moscow. We have seen the talks in Doha. But they did not yield any meaningful outcome. If we saw a meaningful outcome, that was only possible, made possible through the talks brokered by Pakistan. So Pakistan is an important stakeholder for peace and stability in Afghanistan, and Pakistan still maintains number of options to facilitate long-term peace and stability in the neighboring country.
And Dr. Khurram, in your opinion, what role can China and Russia play in taking a regional approach towards bringing about peace, or to jumpstart the peace process or reconciliation process in Afghanistan? What do you foresee their role being?
Well, if America disengages completely from Afghanistan, the first impact would be on Afghan economy, because we have seen that the Afghan economy has been donor-led economy for more than a decade. It's been American aid which has basically made Afghanistan economically viable during last 15 years or so. So if America disengages from Afghanistan, President Trump will see no incentive in spending billions of dollars that America has been spending in Afghanistan. So the first impact, the first vacuum that it will create would be the economic vacuum, and that's where China can contribute significantly. We have seen China's economy growing larger in the last few decades. We have seen intentions from China to invest in Afghanistan. China has invested approximately $10 billion during last few years in 2 mega projects in Afghanistan. So if there is a financial vacuum in Afghanistan, that's where China can chip in by engaging Afghanistan under the umbrella of Belt and Road Initiative. As far as Russia is concerned, I believe that Russia, being a regional stakeholder, is in a position to basically facilitate a regional solution to Afghanistan, because Russia is trying to assert its position in its periphery. So if Pakistan is able to take Russia into confidence, that provides Russia an opportunity basically to reassert its position in Afghanistan and replicate the same role that it has played in Syria. In Syria, we have seen that the Russian played a very important military and political role. If they can replicate the same role in Afghanistan, that would really strengthen Russia's position as an important peace broker in this region.
Well, yes, that remains to be seen. Coming back to the studio, Yasir, since you also been working with the CPEC and are quite familiar with the contours of that, what kind of a role can the CPEC play in moving the peace process forward, and also in securing Afghanistan's economic interests in the long term? I think that's a very important question that needs to be answered and looked at by both China and, in fact, the region.
Yes, for that particular purpose, I mean, China has been playing a very proactive role for the last 2 years or so, since even after the inception of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, because you see this is the main pillar of Belt and Road Initiative, and that is connectivity. When we say about connectivity, the regional connectivity as an integral part of that. And for that very purpose, I mean, I myself been invited a number of times to Beijing in the context of Afghanistan, and there were delegations from the Afghanistan side as well. So China has played a very positive role up till now, that how to bring Pakistan and Afghanistan together, because you see the geographical location of Afghanistan is very important. We know it's a gateway to whole Central Asia, and for the fruition of the Belt and Road Initiative, this is a prerequisite that there has to be tranquility, there has to be peace, and there has to be harmony in Afghanistan, because we have to see it in a larger perspective. China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is a pilot project, but if and Belt and Road Initiative is to connect more than 66 countries together, and that's why, you know, and even China, as a matter of fact, know that why US has been lingering its stay in Afghanistan, and there were 2 main objectives. One, to promote, you know, insurgency and militancy in this region, which US has been doing, and we have the proofs of that. Second is, you know, up till now, the US stay in Afghanistan was to impede the economic development of China, which could have its negative repercussions on the whole region. Because you see, one country, if there is turmoil and chaos over there, it will have its implication to the whole region.
Yes.
So in that context, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor has a very important, a very pivotal role, that it can connect Afghanistan together. There are concerns from the Indian side.
Yeah, but my question is that if the Afghan government and the Taliban realize the importance of being a part of the Belt and Road Initiative, specifically being a part of CPEC to secure their own economic interests for the future, especially when the Americans pull out of Afghanistan, there won't be that huge influx of US dollars or aid money coming into Afghanistan once the Americans leave. So that should be a concern for the Afghans. I want to bring Rana Saab's opinion on this. Rana Saab, what do you foresee in that scenario where the Americans have left? Do you see that it will create a vacuum and we will have chaos, or do you think that we will be able to find some path forward for the Afghan Taliban and the Afghan government and indeed the people of Afghanistan to get some benefit from the departure of the Americans, or do you think it's going to be a disaster?
I think the way things are moving now, in terms of the negotiations with the Afghan Taliban, there appears to be some progress. And for the first time, one gets a sense that the Americans are this time around very serious. They've already announced to withdraw half of, which is 7,000 American troops from Afghanistan. And since Afghan Talibans are insisting for the complete withdrawal, that means that in any possible foreseeable negotiated settlement, that is also a possibility.
But also many, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but many are also looking at the troop withdrawal as a confidence building measure, because the Pakistani government has appreciated the President Trump's decision to pull the troops out, because by pulling 7,000 troops out, he's giving a signal that as long as the Afghan Taliban and the government are able to come to a mutually agreed solution, then he would be willing to take the rest of them out as well. And then furthermore, I want to say that going forward, America can have a very productive relationship with Afghanistan based on trade. And there are a number of opportunities that Afghanistan provides in terms of minerals and whatnot. So there can be a good bilateral relationship between Afghanistan and America based on
I think there is
global trade.
I think over the period of time, the government in Kabul has been propped up as if they have a big role in Afghanistan. What I foresee during this entire negotiating process, what information that we are getting from different sources, that suggests that the government in Kabul is going to be the casualty, a political casualty.
Yeah, this particular government, but there will be a new government.
But what is going to be the formation of that government?
Right.
Now, once that happens, certainly my understanding of the situation is that Taliban right now, they are insisting that they want government which they're going to nominate, something which may not be acceptable for the Americans or maybe for the regional players. But there is a possibility that a representative interim government is installed, they hold elections, or they find some other mechanism which are acceptable to all parties. In that situation, there would not be any civil war the way we had back in 1996. But situation has slightly improved. Now, no longer so-called Northern Alliance is as strong as it was under Ahmad Shah Massoud. He was a great warlord. I mean, he was a great jihadi.
Right.
Situation has changed. So Afghan Taliban have a clear edge. My understanding is that if there is a peace agreement, they are going to be back in Kabul, and they are going to be hopefully a different Taliban, not as rigid, not as hardliner as they used to be. No, and I think since they are diplomatically dealing with the Chinese, they're dealing with Iranians, Russians, Pakistan, Saudis, UAE, Turkish, so they've gained experience. And if they come back again, the situation would be different. And in that bigger situation, I think Chinese will have their role. We will have our CPEC going to Central Asian state through Afghanistan, and the Taliban are going to provide guarantee that there would be no security problem. Something American wanted Taliban 18 years back. They wanted a security to pass through a gas pipeline. They wanted their presence. That is where Americans have failed, and they are not going to get anything out of it. That is where the role of China is going to be important. And my understanding is that Taliban will have a better relation with all regional countries, including China, and the kind of the concern that we used to have in the past, I think things have changed. It's Taliban probably have learned now, and they are not going to go back to the same old era.
All right, well, let's hope that that's the case. Dr. Khurram, we also know that after his meeting with the Afghan president, rather the Afghan Taliban, the Foreign Office statement has said that the aim of visiting the Afghan government was to apprise President Ghani and the Foreign Minister, Mr. Rabbani, of the developments in the Afghan peace process after the meeting in Dubai. Do you think that Pakistan's role is now being appreciated by the Afghan government, and this trust deficit that we've used to hear about in the past has now been bridged completely, and we are moving towards a mutual understanding on bringing peace to the region? Or do you think that we still have a lot of work to do?
Waqas, certainly there has been a tremendous improvement in bilateral relations between Pakistan and Afghanistan over the period of last 2-3 years. We have seen a number of high-level exchanges between the two countries. And it was very important for Shah Mahmood Qureshi to travel to Kabul to basically brief President Ghani on the development, because we must not forget that Afghan government was not a part of the recent talks that were held or brokered by Pakistan. It was only the US side, the Pakistani side. They had some, but not the Afghan government. So one thing that is still very unclear, and we are still seeking details as to why would Afghan government or the Ghani administration would agree to endorse a process of which they are not a part. It seems that there is a tacit approval from President Ashraf Ghani that talks must go on, even if Afghan Taliban do not want to see the Kabul administration on the negotiation table. So by tacitly endorsing such an arrangement, I think President Ashraf Ghani has demonstrated that he is genuinely interested for a long-term and durable peace in Afghanistan. So that is for the talks. And there is another important element for Shah Mahmood Qureshi's recent visit, that is with regards to Iran. Iran on Afghan process agrees with Pakistan. There is a lot of convergence of interest between Iran and Pakistan on the issue of Afghanistan. But recently, there have been few irritants between Pakistan and Iran. As we saw a few months ago, a few Iranian security forces were kidnapped from the border, and they were reportedly brought into Pakistani side. Then we saw Pakistani security forces taking effective measures and ensuring safe release of two of the hostages. That is, I would say, one irritant. Iran so far has not taken it public. Then there was recently an attack on the border, which Pakistan thought was facilitated from the Iranian side. So there are few irritants in Pakistan-Iran relations of lately. So it was very important for Shah Mahmood Qureshi to travel to Tehran and talk to Iranian counterparts on these issues.
Right, and also the foreign ministry statement from Kabul is quite interesting to note. The foreign minister, Mr. Rabbani, has emphasized on direct talks between the Afghan government and the Taliban. When do we foresee some kind of a contact being established between the Afghan Taliban and the Afghan government?
That's a very tricky question, I would say, because for a long time, Afghan Taliban have maintained that they would talk, but only to the Americans, because they consider Kabul administration as the puppet administration. But as Ashraf Ghani has shown a lot of flexibility, Afghan Taliban would have also, they have to show flexibility with regards to this perspective, because Afghan Taliban must understand that they cannot survive or grow in isolation. If there are regional countries who are facilitating and playing their role for a long-term peace, Afghan Taliban would have to show little bit of flexibility, because if Afghan Taliban do not show this flexibility, then, and if, God forbid, this peace process fails, then you would see that no country, whether it's Pakistan, China, Iran, or United States of America, would have any incentive to talk to Afghan Taliban. So stakes are high for Afghan Taliban to show some flexibility and talk and also include the Ghani administration, the Kabul administration in the peace process.
Indeed, that is extremely important. And at the end of the day, it is the Afghan government that the Taliban will have to engage with to bring about lasting peace in Afghanistan. Yasir Saab, what's your point of view on this meeting? Do you think that we are moving towards that? How soon do you think that will take place?
I think yes, because of, as a matter of fact, things have changed a lot down the line, because even Afghan government, the Ghani administration they have realized that this is the only way out, because until and unless there is not any synchronization between Taliban and between the Afghan government,
there can be no peace.
There could be no peace and no hope for any solution, and situation could come back to square one.
President Ghani himself said sometimes back that the Afghan government cannot survive financially without West's help beyond 6 months. That reflects the actually worth of this government, a government which is confined to Kabul, and symbolically it has presence in parts of Afghanistan. That's it. So if Taliban are negotiating with Americans directly, it makes sense. So holding, if we are seeing some sort of negotiation between government in Kabul and Taliban, I think that is unlikely to happen.
And there's also the reassurance that Pakistan wants to give to the regional partners that Pakistan will not abandon the peace process and the reconciliation process, as we have seen the Western countries have done that in the past, completely abandoned the project and walked off to everybody's detriment.
Now, the last point I want to make, Afghan Taliban want Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Pakistan to give them guarantee that Americans would leave Afghanistan. Now it's no longer the Americans who are providing any sort of guarantees to any other player.
Right.
So dynamics of geostrategic politics have changed altogether.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for taking out the time and sharing your views with PTV World, and a special thanks to Dr. Khurram, who is in China. Dr. Khurram, thank you so much for taking out the time and being with us on The World Today. That's all the time we have. Goodbye.
That this continues, and the conducive environment in Pakistan is absolutely ready for any kind of business inside Pakistan. Thank you for watching today's show. See you next time. Khuda Hafiz.
But at the same time, do not want to give Pakistan its due respect and its due space. And I don't even want respect and space. Essentially, as a student of international relations, I just want our sensitivities addressed, whether it is our relations with India, whether it is the Kashmir issue, or it is Kabul-Islamabad interactions.
Absolutely. We're almost out of time, but let's also talk about how can we change the paradigm from the short-term strategic advantage to long-term strategic goals for the entire region, and which means that cooperation between China, Pakistan, India and America, of course, that would benefit Afghanistan as well. Do you think that we can even think of moving in that direction?
Yeah, yes, as we know, now you can find in the so-called Indo-Pacific region, there are two trends. One is maybe it's a geopolitical or geostrategic competition. because you can find some major powers in this region and beyond this region. They would like to just form a military group, maybe it's called. They just would like to form an exclusive and closed military cooperation between these four countries. And that trend will lead to geopolitical competition and even conflict and even wars maybe in the future. And another trend is geo-economic cooperation. It's represented by Chinese initiative or BRI. And we would like to enhance economic cooperation with the regional countries. And we would like to, in this process, Chinese companies would like to make money, but we would like to expand the global value chain, production, and supply chain to this region. To
address the inequality that is persistent in the entire world. Now you want a more equitable distribution of wealth so that the region itself grows rather than an individual country.
Yeah,
that's what you're trying to say, right?
Yeah, as we know, Asia Pacific is an economic term. It's not a geopolitical term, but Indo-Pacific is just a geostrategic or geopolitical term. So we would like to extend the global value chain from East Asia, from China, to this region, to form a real Indo-Pacific century, to realize such a future. So I think the challenge for us is just to change the mindset, especially for some Western politicians.
Absolutely. Good luck with that. Thank you very much, Dr. Liu, Dr. Huma, Mr. Harrison, for taking out the time and sharing your views with PTV World. Well, it was an extremely vast subject. We were just barely able to scratch the surface. But please do draw your own conclusions from what you've heard. On that note, it's goodbye.